Densha de GO!
We entered the new millennium with high hopes for the future. The internet was no longer the preserve of the technologically adept, and the limitations imposed by 56k modems were being chipped away as broadband began popping up to great fanfare. The PlayStation 2 was here to irrefutably cement Sony as the new video game industry leaders, bringing with it DVD playback at a more affordable price than standalone players, while the Dreamcast brought the arcade flawlessly into the home. Mobile phones had seen mass adoption, particularly in Japan, as the tech matured and the devices and their network plans became more affordable. Phones became fashion accessories, and while mobile phones were simple devices that fulfilled the immediate requirements of talking from anywhere and very basic PDA functionality, there were signs of where the technology would lead. Yes, the Y2K bug had amounted to almost nothing, and people could leave their primitive encampments in the woods and return to a civilization free from aeroplanes dropping from the skies and murderous sentient toasters. The future looked bright indeed. Except for Sega, who were just months away from declaring their latest console, the Dreamcast, a failure and binning the whole thing off. It didn't even complete a second year in the UK. Launched October 14th, 1999, and declared dead by Sega March 21st of 2001. In hindsight, it did everything right and was ahead of its time in several respects. 4 ports on the front for local co-op, internet as standard on every machine allowing for online play and downloadable content, arcade mirroring hardware that allowed for 99% direct ports from the arcade, GD-ROMs allowing for more data to be stored on disk than a CD, better anti-aliasing than even the PlayStation 2, which allowed for smooth as butter graphics, Windows CE functionality that gave developers a means of easily putting their games out on the console, memory cards that could be loaded with mini-games to continue developing your characters when out and about, and a successful launch strategy, which was essential after the absolutely bonkers self-sabotaging Saturn launch. For all its praise, the Dreamcast still faltered in a few key places. GD-ROMs were in no way on par with the superior DVD format. Tech-savvy consumers were more than happy to pass on the Dreamcast and wait for Sony's PlayStation 2 that would pull double duty as the games console and player of the hottest new video format. Sega's reliance on conversions of arcade and sports games, which is a criticism that dates back to the Master System, meant that a large chunk of the Dreamcast library was designed for shallow arcade experiences. Not to say that the Dreamcast was devoid of deeper gaming experiences. Blue Stinger, Code Veronica, Phantasy Star, Evolution, and of course Shenmue 1 and 2 proved there was plenty of room for meatier games. Another factor in the demise of the Dreamcast was piracy. It was very easy to burn a CD-ROM, and the lackluster copy protection could be easily fooled. The Utopia boot disk was a disk that you could pop into your Dreamcast and boot up, after which you could drop in a backup of a Dreamcast on CDR and play away. This was particularly handy for piracy factories in Hong Kong, Thailand and other Southeast Asian countries who could sell some convincing backups of Dreamcast titles. Some pirate games were even able to self-boot on older Dreamcast hardware revisions. It was pretty rough for Sega. The machine was also region locked, as was the case with many consoles back in the day, meaning you could only play games from your own geographical region. This was to stop us poor saps in Europe from importing the cheaper US or Japanese versions of games months or even years in advance of their official EU release. It also meant we could not access the enormous Japanese library of games, most of which were never localized and never left Japan. Fun story, back in the Dreamcast heyday, a magazine gave away a cover disc that let you use cheats in your games. The Action Replay CDX demo version also had another very useful feature. It cleared the Dreamcast's region locking, completely removing any hindrance to importing games. Thanks to a free cover disc, we now had region-free consoles. Ah, those were the days. Ultimately though, it was Sega themselves who pulled the plug on the Dreamcast, feeling they would succeed better as a publisher for all platforms rather than battling against the bigger Nintendo and the even bigger Sony. An enormous shame, as it was a genuinely incredible piece of gaming hardware and very much ahead of its time. Before its untimely demise, the Dreamcast was host to Densha de GO 2 High Speed Edition 3000 series, an upgraded version of Densha de GO 2. Dengo 3000 Bandai first appeared in arcades in August 1998 and boasted more trains and new or extended routes to run compared to the original sequel. Sticking with the high-speed theme, Taito continued its focus on express and high-speed trains. And it is this arcade game that was directly ported to the PC and Sega's arcade at home, the Dreamcast. And as it is a direct port of the arcade, it is as bare bones as it gets, which is particularly disappointing when you think about all the multimedia and connectivity features of the Dreamcast. I mentioned Windows CE functionality in the opening preamble, and this game is one of about 15% of the Dreamcast library that relied on that ability. I wonder if using Windows CE rather than the proprietary development tools allowed Taito to quickly, easily, and cheaply port over arcade assets. For those interested, Windows CE is essentially a layer of code. It's a miniature operating system containing libraries and ready-built features that goes between the bare metal of the console and the game. So rather than getting into the muck and using Sega's proprietary development tools which would have you directly interfacing with the hardware, someone has done it for you and bundled it all up in a set of instructions and programs. Often this comes at a price, as directly manipulating the hardware allows for getting 100% of the machine to use, and even pushing through some of these limitations. So while there will be some concessions, making games that rely on existing code like Windows CE is far easier and cheaper than starting from scratch. So we boot up and we are greeted with the Windows CE splash screen, also seen on such games as Sega Rally 2, Resident Evil 2 and Starlancer. Blasting through the intro and title screen, we are met with the main menu, which consists of a whopping 4 choices: arcade mode, options, ranking, or save and load. The very barest of bones for poor Dreamcast jockey rail fans. But let's have a closer look. Perhaps there is something of note in the options. Nope! Just the standard selection of control style, difficulty, vibration strength, sound channel, speedometer design, and distance gauge units. I feel it's worth mentioning that the last game we had, which was just the base game and no more, was Densha de GO 2 on the WonderSwan, an 8-bit grayscale handheld and throwback to the Game Boy. This is our first look at Densha de GO running on next-gen hardware, and no effort was expended whatsoever. The VMU, the modem, the baked-in video codec in Windows CE, all going spare. But I guess that's all just window dressing, and what matters to us is how does the game feel. Let's have a crack at a route. So we have the routes broken down into regions. Hokuriku, that's northwestern Japan, Tohoku, northeast, Kanto, which is Tokyo and surrounding prefectures, and Kansai, which is Kyoto, Osaka, Nara, and surrounding prefectures. Hokuriku has 5 timetables with HK100, 485, 485 3000 and 681 2000 series trains, running the Hokuhoku line from Naoetsu all the way to Muikamachi. Tohoku has 6 timetables divided among the 3 trains, the E3 series Komachi, the 701 and 701 5000 series. These trains will run an assortment of routes from Akito to Morioka and even Shin Hanamaki if playing the special difficulty timetable. Tokyo is served by the 209 series on the Keihin Tohoku line and the 205 series on the Yamanote. You may recall that the Yamanote line was missing from the original Densha de GO 2, so Taito remedied that with the updated 3000 Bandai version. It's a very good thing they did, as it's really fun to play here, but only makes up one of the 4 timetables in this section. The route between Yokohama and Ueno can be run with the blue Keihin trains, and the Yamanote line runs between Tokyo and Shinjuku and shares some of the route with the Keihin Tohoku line. And finally, we have the Kansai region with 4 timetables, each with a unique train, the 207, 223, 201 and 221 series trains. These trains all run various sections of the track between Osaka and Kobe. So the question is, how has 3000 Bandai differentiated itself from the original Densha de GO 2? This handy table shows the different tracks available on each version of Densha de GO 2. This is only showing tracks and not the timetables featured in the game, so while we may see only a few routes, each route will have more than one timetable, train and difficulty setting. It also focuses on the start point and terminus. The Keihin Tohoku line reads as running from Yokohama to Ueno, when in fact there are multiple timetables breaking this stretch into sections. We can see how bare bones Dengo 2 was at the time, and this explains why 5 months later the 3000 Bandai update was released. Now, you may be thinking that the 3000 Bandai version has a lot more content than the original. This is true and yet not. The All Mainline and Tazawako line are actually all part of the Akita Shinkansen. The only difference being that they are usually host to local trains, so yes, there is more content, but a great deal of it is recycled. And fair play to them. Driving an express is very different to driving a local train, so why not get the most out of the tracks you've designed? As usual, once the run starts we get a map of the upcoming stops, and from there it's business as usual. There are no gameplay differences. Indeed, it's hard to go back after playing Densha de GO Pro to playing this game. The missing navigator reminds you how harsh the original Densha de GO 2 games are. Immediate speed changes and arbitrary speed limits punish the player who has yet to commit each route's intricacies to heart. Yes, a taste of honey is worse than none at all, and the missing navigator leaves a bitter taste. But then again, this is an arcade game designed to maximise profit and not the encouraging home version. As expected from a 6th generation console, this game does look very good indeed, making use of the higher resolution and better textures offered by the Dreamcast. There is more trackside detail too. On the Akita run there are moving cars and trucks running alongside our train. And now that I've seen it, I can't shake the static empty roads of all the previous versions. Another neat detail is the trucks are all loaded with Densha de GO cabs, as first seen on a truck waiting at a railroad crossing on the Hoku Hoku line. While we are on the topic of the Akita run, there is snow in this game too. The special difficulty Akita to Shin Hanamaki line has you driving through a blizzard. It makes some difference to the train handling, but not as much as rain on previous games. It's entirely manageable. It looks decent enough and there is a lot of it. This is the only adverse weather I noticed on my runs. No rain this time around, giving us pleasant weather throughout. We are treated to some runs at different times of day. There is a Keihin run that takes place at dusk, once again giving us a lovely intercity run between Yokohama and Tokyo under a vaporwave sky. Oh, and speaking of the Keihin line, there is an in-game trackside reference to a real-life person, the Ohayo Oji-san, or Grandpa Good Morning. In an interview for Densha de GO Academy, game director Saito Akira told a story of an elderly gentleman who would stand trackside outside of Oimachi Station every morning. As a train approached, the old man would unfold a large piece of paper with "Good Morning" written on it as a means of encouraging the driver. This persisted for a very long time, and as a reward, a train driver gave Gramps an old train driver's hat, and from that day, Good Morning Geezer was seen wearing it as he saluted the passing trains. Amazing. I wonder if Saito and the team had seen the old man while doing reconnaissance runs during game dev, and asked the train drivers what the deal was. Regardless, it's a great inclusion and beautifully unnecessary. Gameplay wise, there's not much more to say. This is our 5th look at a game based on Densha de GO 2. If you haven't watched the earlier videos on Dengo 2, Dengo 64, Dengo 2 on WonderSwan and Densha de GO 2 on Neo Geo Pocket, have a watch and get caught up. This plays very much as being in the arcade camp and is ostensibly the last of its kind. As the games become more home console focused, the overall difficulty of the games decreases. Not to say they are easy, the games still require exacting adherence to the timetable and precision stopping, but various quality of life improvements make the games less punishing. The year 2000 would also see the last of the Densha de GO arcade games, and while we're getting ahead of ourselves, it did make me wonder what happened to Densha de GO in arcades. Was it just a flash in the pan sparked by the unique play experience of the original cabinet? The original game's difficulty would have been a barrier to continued enjoyment for the casual player, and with Dengo 2 doubling down with the increased obstacles in a given run, it's easy to imagine a player walking away baffled, initial curiosity replaced with confusion. Or it might have been the enormous improvement in home consoles. The sheer wealth of content on Dengo Pro puts all prior games in the series to shame. Why go to the arcade and play on a handful of tracks and trains when a plethora is waiting for you etched on a CD? And with the release of the 6th generation consoles, Dreamcast and PlayStation 2, the home consoles had a visual fidelity that began to rival the arcade. For decades, the best looking games were in the arcade, but now consoles were catching up. So it was entirely possible to recreate the arcade experience at home. Much like the PlayStation, Sega Saturn and Nintendo 64, the Dreamcast also had a bespoke Master Controller. This time round it is in a fetching white, a tone slightly lighter than the original Dreamcast but in line with the console's colour scheme. Unfortunately, it's just another straight copy of what went before. No slot for VMU support, no rumble, just a controller. I'll save the teardown and outputs for its own video, but I must stress how awesome it would have been to have a little slot for the VMU with extra information relayed to the player. This is one of my biggest gripes with this game. The absolute lack of VMU support. During the game, the LCD face of the VMU will display a train, but that's all. Other Dreamcast games let you download minigames to take them with you. Sonic Adventure, for example, let you carry around a Chow virtual pet that you could interact with. How cool would it have been to have a very basic game like the LCD games to play on the go? Maybe carrying across your best stops to the main game and unlock train photos. It's almost criminal what a wasted opportunity that was. But this game was a definite rushed out port of the arcade game to capture what was left of Dengo Mania. Thankfully, this is not a problem for the next game in the series. So, where are we going to put Densha de GO 2 High Speed Edition 3000 series in our tier list? Well, my gut says low like an E or a D, but the game is solid. It gets nothing wrong compared to other versions, it just makes no use of the Dreamcast's advanced features. A B seems a bit too high, but a C puts it on par with the two handheld games. Well, I guess it will have to be a B this time around. I think that had this game been released before Densha de GO Professional, I would have been much more forgiving, but Densha de GO Pro has ruined this series for me and set the mark so very high, it may be that nothing ever comes close. But we have a lot of games left to play in this series, so there is still time for a pleasant surprise. As always, I thank you all for watching. Next time we'll be stopping off at Taito's only foray into region-specific train driving with Densha de GO Nagoya Edition on the PlayStation. Until then, I'll see you at the next station.